Hello and welcome to Own Your Health with me, Katie Brindle. And we are talking today about a very typical subject which always comes up every single year, no matter what, which is weight loss. But before we get into that, I thought it would be good to have a little bit of interaction with some of the lovely comments that you've given us. And the first is Claire. She says, "Oh, no wonder I'm always used to being burnt out in the winter as I walk around barefoot. So now the slippers are on. It's really, really important at this time of year. This is the absolute coldest time of the year, okay? And the organ in charge right now is your kidneys, and your kidneys hate cold. And the root of the kidney channel is actually just here on your feet. So with your foot flat on the ground, the kidney channel is right there. So if you start getting cold feet, that cold goes all the way up the channel into the kidneys. So it's absolutely paramount that you wear vests to cover the lower back, that you wear warm boots. I mean, I'm literally sitting here thinking, look, here's my vest. Here are my warm boots. So there you go. I do practice what I preach. The only reason I didn't have a hat on today was because I had my hair done before I came in. So I had little ear muffs instead to protect my hair, to keep my ears warm. Your kidneys open to your ears. So ear muffs, hats, keeping the extremities warm, absolutely vitally important. And Claire said she feels so much better for doing so. And you will. You really will. Suchi says, I've been having fresh ginger tea daily for the past month to help settle the inflammation flare-ups in my stomach from IBS. I've noticed that my constant sinus issues have almost disappeared. Sushi, that is really, really good news to hear. And it just goes to show that sometimes you can just make super simple adjustments to your routine. You don't have to reinvent the wheel in order to start bringing balance and harmony back to your body. It is sometimes just a consistent use of the right thing, like brushing your teeth, that will make a massive difference to how you feel. One thing to say, if you've got sinusitis, is use the Himalayan salt pipe. It is one of the best things for drying up mucus inside the body. It's a very cheap and effective self-care technique. It's also very good for the lungs, for respiratory conditions which are prevalent at this time of year. You only need to buy it once. It will last you as long as you don't drop it for years and years and years and years if you look after it. And it's based on a really brilliant technique called halotherapy. Now, there is a whole podcast where we've discussed about using the salt pipe and halotherapy, so you can refer back to that. And there is also a fact sheet on my website as well. So there's lots of information about that if you're interested. Into the topic of the day. It's New Year, which means everybody starts talking about diets, exercise, losing weight, and the usual. Now, today is a Q&A, so I'm bringing this episode to you in response to a question from Lindsay. She said, you must have some great tips for helping lose the 2 kilos that I've gained from my Christmas dinner. Well, I do, as a matter of fact. Now, the thing is, I don't like using the term weight loss. Okay, I find it's a bit like anti-aging. I find these terms are very 20th century and very negative, and they bring about all sorts of connotations of diets and failed attempts and self-loathing and all sorts of things that comes with it, and punishment, and you can't have this and you should do that, and oh God, I've broken it, and all the yo-yos that go with it. And it's just miserable. So I was talking to Vix just before we started, and I said, well, the new way to describe anti-aging is ageless beauty. We call it ageless, okay, because you're ageless, you're just beautiful. It's not about your age. You're just beautiful. So that's a much nicer term. And what was the terminology for weight loss? There was a few, and do please put in your comments below which ones you like. But we like body balancing. I have also called it Best Body. And I've actually got some masterclasses on my website called Best Body, because it's not really about being anything. It's about being balanced. And it's about feeling your best. And that's really what this message about. But body balancing was good because it really allows me the hook into today's episode. Because the thing about Christmas, or the holiday season, because not everyone celebrates Christmas, is if you just hold your hands into prayer, okay, in front of your heart, that is a balanced body. That symbolizes balance, okay, because you've got everything together. Now, if you imagine that that's like 12 o'clock on the clock, and now take the big hand round to number 5. Okay, so now you've got a little gap. That's what happens over the holiday period. We tend to overindulge, as Lindsay has just said. So what then happens is you're off balance. So now it's not really about losing weight or punishing yourself. It's about going, okay, well, I've expanded a bit, so now it's time to contract a bit. And actually, funnily enough, one of the things that I love about January, and I know January, I feel really sorry for January. It has a really bad rap. Everyone hates January. I love January. The reason I love January so much is it is absolutely the month of the year where the message that I give you absolutely rings from the rooftops. Okay, everybody's doing what I say to do. Everybody is adopting these techniques, at least for 4 weeks until it all kicks off again. People are staying at home. People are looking after themselves. People are adopting good habits. People are thinking and being conscious about what they're eating, how they're moving, adopting good, healthy practices, trying to think about letting go of some other habits which perhaps aren't particularly constructive. It's a very good time of year to release. And of course, bang slap at the end of January comes Chinese New Year and the start of spring, which is, according to the natural calendar, almost always on the 4th of February. So that's, I know the Chinese New Year is before then, but the start of spring is the 4th, give or take. Every now and then it changes, but basically it is. So you haven't got long before spring suddenly appears, and you've got this opportunity to just really, really indulge your body and to rest up and to really feed the body before you go into the new year. So this makes no exception. So it's not a good idea to start putting yourself on some hideous, strict, I don't know what regime that I see permeating out there in all sorts of shapes and guises all throughout my life. I mean, I've seen all sorts of things. Fat-free diets, I mean, what a disaster. High-protein diets only, some of them not too bad, often a lot of them far too extreme. There's all sorts of bad information out there. There's all sorts of shakes and powders and eating this and only having that and having cabbage soup every meal. And to be honest with you, most of them are not balanced. What I always like to suggest at this time of year is you just go back, you just pare back. Okay, you just pare back to simplicity, because what normally happens over the holiday period is we tend to expand out and we tend to get a bit complex. You know, we eat rich food, we meet each other, we go out for dinners, we get into really bad habits. Okay, so the most important thing is to really just give yourself a little bit of a pared back few weeks where you just get yourself back into just a little bit more of an austerity drive, because what the body likes when it's overindulged is simplicity. And that is what we advocate, so that we just go back to our roots, we go back to simple eating, and we just go back to some good habits. And what will then happen is your body balances, and then everything sorts itself out naturally. Now, the more imbalanced your body is, the more we need to do. So let's just start with some simple things, and then we'll go deeper, okay? Because if, like me, you're one of these, because this is an episode about body balancing, weight loss, however you want to talk about it, my body shows imbalance in fat cells. I like to call them landfill. Okay, so what happens is my body doesn't put it into joints, it doesn't put it into the empty spaces, I don't really get headaches, it doesn't do that. If I've gone out of balance, it puts it into my fat cells. So that would be the equivalent of somebody saying, I only need to look at a piece of cake and I put weight on. Okay, so if that's talking to you, that's because your body metabolism is one where it just uses the opportunity to just put toxins and things that it doesn't want into landfill. Okay, so all you have to do is balance deeper. And if these techniques don't work at the superficial level, it just means you've got to go deeper. And that was the journey when aside from my teaching journey, which is how you're meeting me, but in my own personal journey, in my own personal life, that's how I balanced my body. That's how I went from being 20 stone when I gave birth to my twins, which was after they came out, I was 17 stone from the pregnancy, and then balanced my body all the way back down to where I am now. Which I don't actually know what I weigh because I don't weigh myself. But I mean, I know I'm a size 8 to 10. So I probably weigh, I don't know, about 60 kilos probably. But the point is that I had to really understand the healing pivot that sat underneath that balancing act. Because just doing the simple stuff simply wasn't enough, because the pregnancy had sent my body so deeply off balance that the healing pivot was really, really far down. Okay. And that's what happens if you're one of these people that struggle, okay, with the weight loss narrative. Okay. So it's all about balancing. It's just how deep does the pivot go to balance. So let's start simply, and then we'll go further and further, because you'll find yourself in a funnel and you start with the easy stuff, and the deeper you go, eventually you pivot, and eventually the problem will balance itself out. So step number 1, the first thing to do is to just get some really good eating practices back, because the holiday period is very much a time where we overdo it, okay, as Lindsay has said. So what do? The first thing is make sure that you diary your food. So make sure that you diary when you eat, because what we do is we diary everything else and then we think, oh, I haven't had any lunch. Now, I got caught out on Tuesday. I didn't listen to my own advice. Okay, so I'm a human being. I'm not the Dalai Lama. I didn't diary my food. And what then happened was the day took over and I didn't get my lunch until 5:30 in the evening, because I just simply hadn't diaried it in and I wasn't able to get to food because the day went a bit spirally. So then what happened was I ate a very late lunch, which was kind of fine, but it meant I didn't want dinner. And then, of course, by 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, I was absolutely starving because I hadn't had my second meal, or my third meal, because breakfast, obviously, so breakfast, lunch, dinner. And that then put the cat amongst the pigeons, because I was too hungry. What I should have done was go to bed on an empty stomach, but I was too hungry. So I ate something. And then I didn't sleep very well because my body was trying to digest food when it was also trying to go to sleep. So I'd gone off kilter, and then I felt icky the next day. And now finally I went back into good habits, and now it's okay again. So the first thing to do is diary when you eat. Put your breakfast, your lunch and your dinner into your diary so that you give yourself time to eat. And really, ideally, the time between each meal should be 5 hours. Okay, so if you eat at 9 a.m, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, the next meal should be at 2. And then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The last meal should be at 7. Okay, so it should be 9 to 7. All right, or 8, 1, 6. 816 is actually better, okay, because really, according to Chinese medicine, you should be finishing your meal, the 6 o'clock meal, and then after that there should be no more food for 4 clear hours before you go to sleep, so that when you're going to sleep, your liver and your gallbladder, which are the organs where the energy flows in sleep at that time of night, are not dealing with the digestive process. They're dealing with other things, because otherwise they're dealing with your digestion, and then you're going to feel funny the next day, and it's not good for body balancing. So that's the first thing to say. The next thing is to indeed ensure that there are 4 clear hours between the last of your evening meal and going to bed, so that you have a long fast. Okay, now I know lots of people love intermittent fasting, and actually the trick to really simple intermittent fasting is not skipping breakfast, it's just having an early dinner. It's just thinking about eating. So, for example, I'm in the studio right now. I'm just looking at Vix because she's opposite. And I'm thinking, so actually what you should do, for example, Paul Vix is going, what? Oh my God, don't include me, is eat before you go home. Because you've got quite a long journey home. So by the time you finish here at 6 and then you get home and then you think about cooking and then you cook and then you eat, it'll be 8 o'clock.
Yeah, you're right.
There you go. It's too late. And then you can't go to bed till midnight. And then you've messed up your sleep patterns. Because you should be, especially in the wintertime, you should be in bed at 10. And you should be fast asleep by 10:30. And Vix is looking at me like I'm mad. So,
no, to be fair, I think I'm in bed by like 9.
Okay, that's really good. But not if you're eating at 8.
But not if I'm eating at 8.
So the other option is we do what we used to do in the olden days. And I'm not one for the good old days at all. I don't think they were that good. Certainly my family. It wasn't great for my family at all. It was good if you were like Downton Abbey. So if you were Lord Grantham, I'm sure you're having a fine old time. But for the rest of us, it wasn't that great. So, but what they did well, okay, was that they had their meal times done correctly, okay? And it's really, really important to make sure you go to bed early and that you eat your main meal at lunchtime. So I want to bring your attention to another brilliant brand which I've been orbiting around over the past few months, and I really like it. It's called Equi, which is short for equilibrium. Now, you can pop over to their website, which is equilondon.com, and it is a brilliant brand of supplements. I've been taking the powders, which I absolutely love. They are absolutely full of nutrients. You've got multivitamins, prebiotics, probiotics, digestive enzymes, superfoods, adaptogens, we've got ashwagandha, and then we've even got mushrooms from traditional Chinese medicine as well. So it's just ram-packed. But because it's so packed full of the good stuff, they've taken out all of the bad stuff. So we don't have chemicals, we don't have fillers, we don't have binders. All of that's been taken out. So it's just pure nutrition. Now, I take a couple of teaspoons after a meal, either breakfast or dinner, and I just mix it in a little bit of plant-based milk. You can do it in water, but I drink it like a little shot because you only need sort of two rounded teaspoons, and that will do the job. And the thing that I like about it is that they've just taken a holistic approach. So it's not a supplement for this and a supplement for that, because personally I find what I end up doing or did in the past was I'd end up with a shelf full of supplements, and then I'd just get a bit fed up with it because I'd end up on sort of 12 different things, and then I couldn't really remember what was doing what. Whereas with this, it's one jar doing one thing, and it's working with everything. So it's working with my hormones, it's working with my digestion, it's working with my immunity, energy, focus, skin, mood. So everything just kind of gets wrapped up into one. Now, I like that because that's kind of fuss-free supplementation. So that's why I'm really excited to explain that brand to you. So that's equilondon.com. Go and have a look at their website. Personally, I like the powder format. That's always my way. I like a little shot of milk. Don't put it in hot drinks. I like it just room temperature milk or a little bit of room temperature water. Get it down the hatch and you're sorted. You should be eating. We all, in France, I remember when I lived in France, I remember one of the brothers in the family, I've lived with a few different families over the years, but in this particular family, they had 5 sons, okay? It was quite good. I was 16 at the time. It was great. I was like, Oh my God, they're all so gorgeous. Anyway, the mother, because it was a bit cisgender, I'm afraid. So, the dad was at work, the mum was at home, the boys, I was there in the holidays, so everyone was in. And she would spend all morning cooking, and we had a big lunch at lunchtime. And the evening meal was very light. That's how it used to be. People used to eat at lunchtime, and then you'd give yourself a good hour. So the standard lunch break in France, when I was living in France, was 90 minutes, because you had longer at lunch to go out and eat and then digest for a bit and then have a coffee and then take your time and then go back to the desk. And yes, they'd finish their day later, but they basically got their eating out of the way. Now, as a British person living there, I remember thinking how weird that was, especially when I was older and then I was working myself, because I was used to the British way of doing things, which was grab a sandwich and eat at your desk. So one of the things to do is to just know that that's the case, but just if nothing else, just think about, as you're starting the year, like, when are you eating? Okay, so Vix, your classic example, when are you actually eating, and how much time are you giving yourself to digest your food before you get busy again? Because the thing about your body is processing all of this food. It's assimilating it. It's your digestive system. But your digestive system in Chinese medicine, especially the spleen, is responsible for the intellect. It's called the yi. So we actually have these terms in our language. We say to digest information. We literally say that. We say, I'm going to digest that information. And we use eating words and references when we're talking to information, and devouring a book, devouring information like we devour food, because our medical history has come from the same information. It's just got diluted over time, and we've had different geopolitics. But the answer is, if you then sort of shove down, poor Vic, she's sat there going, right, I'm going next door because I keep picking on her. So I'm looking right now. So she's sat there working. She's got an itsu next to her. Well done for the itsu. And it wasn't sushi, which is bad at this time of year. She's got a hot, nutritious something or other going on there. It looks really good. It's vegan. It's great. It's got all the right things going on, and it's from next door. So blah, blah, well done, tick. But she's halfway through it, ladies and gentlemen, and she's working on this podcast right now because Madam here was late starting for very stupid reasons. So she's not finished her food. So she's eating while she's working. So her poor body is going, right, what am I going to do here? So the work will dominate, because we've been conditioned to do so, and she's at work, and I expect her to do her job because I'm doing mine, and I ate mine earlier. But poor old Vix, so her poor digestive system right now is just going so of course then it can't absorb the nutrients out of the food. So Vix, you need to put your laptop down. You need to down tool. No, don't do that. Don't down tools, I need you. Right, but you need to, to cut a long, very long, boring story short, it's not boring, it's interesting. To cut a very long story short, you need to diary your food, and you need to give yourself at least 20 minutes before you start the next task, to just allow at least the beginning of the digestive system, to just allow the blood to go to your digestive system. Now, the next problem, aside from not diarying your food, okay, the next problem is working, which I've sort of just sort of staggered into just then. So the problem with working whilst we're eating, or if you're not working and you're just on your phone, for example, is that it takes the attention away from the digestive process, as I've just explained. But if you are then in a stressful situation, that's going to make this matters even worse. And I haven't even talked about what you're eating yet. This is just when you're eating and how you're eating and what mood you're in when you're eating. And it all makes a massive difference. Okay, like feeling guilty about what you're eating. Oh, I shouldn't have had that. That was bad. That's what people say to me in clinic. They go, when I'm good, this is like 50-year-old women saying this to me. When I'm good, Katie, I do, the fish, the vegetables, the fruit, the this, that, all the good stuff. And then they go, but when I'm being naughty, they say, and I sit there and I go, you are a 50-plus age woman, and we're using terms like we're little children. Like, when I'm being naughty, you think, oh, for goodness sake, we are allowed to indulge. We totally are. We've just got to know what to do to rein it back in again. And these are, I'm giving you top tips, easy things to do. So the next problem is stress. The problem with modern life is we're stressed. We're all rushing around. We've got loads to do. There's too much going on. The phones don't stop pinging. The reason poor Vix hasn't finished her lunch is because I was late, is because my phone rang not once, not twice, but 4 times in a micro break in between recording when I was trying to go to the loo at the same time. So that's not about poor old me. This is just me going, this is what's going on. This is what happens. It's all just a bit crazy out there. And there's so many messages all the time and they never stop. So what happens is we get stressed. Now, the problem with stress is such a negative energy on the body, and it impacts all of the organs. And the problem with that is that some of these key organs have a vital role to play in your digestive system. Your spleen, which is your earth energy, which in Chinese medicine is the primary organ of your digestion, and then secondarily, your liver. which is an organ which gets absolutely mullered by stress. Because what the liver does is it manages the blood flow and it manages all sorts of processes across the body, and it will divert things in order to compensate. And then it's got this massive responsibility to do with sort of spiking glucose and injecting glucose into the blood for flight or fight. Okay, but it needs its glucose, it needs its supplies, and then it needs to manage blood and it needs to manage the stress response, and it's trying to do its job, but you're just like implying more stress on it when it's trying to digest food. So then it doesn't know literally whether it's coming or going. So all sorts of bodily processes at this point start to go a bit AWOL. You've got all sorts of things not really happening systematically because the liver's kind of squirting this, that, and the other here, there, and everywhere. And it's also trying to absorb its take of what it needs for the next day. And it's stressed and it's processing. The spleen's processing information. It's trying to absorb the nutrients out of your food to get the digestive system moving. All this conversation is just going the poor old body doesn't know what it's doing. So what happens is your metabolism starts to slow down because your organs are just muddled up and confused, and they end up basically like we do when there's too much going on. You just drop all the balls and then nothing really ends up happening. It just spirals, and that's the problem. So this is easily rectified by just simply giving yourself a peaceful, calm environment within which to eat and to not work at your desk whilst you're eating. You've got to have a lunch break. It's not for wimps. I defy that Tory MP. It's a biological necessity. It's better to eat at lunchtime if you possibly can. It's better to have a proper meal, and it's better to eat hot, home-cooked or extremely well-cooked, kind of like really good quality street food. It's who I will pass. I think it's really good as by and large. Okay. Obviously, the best is go home and eat and cook from scratch. That's unlikely to be the case for most people listening. So then you have to make wise choices. Okay. And then you have to give yourself time. Having calorie restrictions is not great because what that's going to do is create a food narrative about what you can have and what you can't have and how naughty you're being, how good you're being. It's much, much better to just follow these simple guidelines, okay, these guardrails, and just go, right, I sit within this. And when I splurge out a bit and I've had a bit of wine or I've had some cheese or I ate at 8:30 at night because it was over the holiday period, then now I'm going to give myself a January where I just do it right to balance my body and get myself back. And you will find yourself back on track. If you're one of these people like me, where you find that even by following all of this advice, it hasn't actually made that much difference and your weight loss journey hasn't necessarily performed as well you would like, the main reason is that you need to go deeper into the three things that I always explain about how you own your health. It is because the circulation isn't moving properly. It's because the filtration units of the body are not working correctly. And it's because the key organs of the body are they're not working properly and they're not strong enough. So what we've got to do is we've got to strip it back and we've got to strengthen the 5 key organs. We've got to assist the body with its purging and nourishing, and we have to assist circulation. So that is relatively easily done. You need to use the Hey You method tools. The tapper, the sculptor is fantastic for all of these things. Gua sha techniques, body brushing, hot cold bathing. Go to my 7-step plan. Have a look at my masterclass, which is all about best body. Have a look at my free fact sheet, all about I'm saying weight loss. It's not, I think it might actually be called, because it had to hit the, it's a really difficult one because it has to hit the search engine. So it's kind of the search engine likes weight loss. It doesn't know what I'm talking about. If I say best body, you won't find it because you'll be Googling weight loss. So I can't remember if it says best body or weight loss, but basically the information, there's more information on this than this podcast alone. And also download my free 7-day plan, which will also help you get back on track as well. And have a look in my book because there's a whole chapter on digestion where I talk more about this as well. But hopefully those tips that I've given you today will give you enough to get yourself started. And if you need to go deeper, do just put it in the comments below. I can always do a part 2 to this podcast to go extreme body balancing if we need to. So thank you so much for listening. We've got some really good information there. And do please make sure that you review this on your Apple or your Spotify and wherever you hear your podcast from. If you are on YouTube, please hit subscribe now and share this content with your friends and your loved ones because it helps us get the message out. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.